father. The last time I had the opportunity to say anything publicly about this man, I sobbed in front of a crowd of like 60 people for several minutes. Not gonna happen this time, but just know, he has like deep influence, power, and just like is like such a gem, and we're lucky. Anyway, I'm here to talk about something that prior to knowing that James was going to be here, I've been thinking about just the extent to which Bonner really influenced the way that Greensboro Mutual Aid has been working over the course of the past 2 years. It started as a total accident, so you too can make accidents that really impact people's lives. It was, I was working in a juice shop, pandemic comes along, oh no, health crisis, oh no, working in the public sector, oh no, being a low-wage worker, LOL, right? Yeah, it was a good time. And everyone was losing their job who was working in these low-wage jobs or being put at extremely high risk. And so I saw someone had posted from DC like a virtual tip jar, and I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, how easy is that? Let me just go make a virtual tip jar. And so people were then just putting in their cash handles, their Venmos, their cash apps, those things. And anyone could just go and be like, oh, I'm gonna virtually tip these workers. And they could also share where they were working. So then it's like, oh, this was my regular barista. Because there were those relationships, being able to just continue to build on that. But then when it became very clear we were still in a pandemic, even today, it was like, oh, I don't want to be creating a false sense of hope for people. And so from there, through conversation, it was like, okay, well, let's create some structures that we can then just amplify resources that are in town to be able to connect people with asks and offerings. And so we just created random social media platforms. So, on Facebook, it's Greensboro Mutual Aid Hub. You can just go look that up, interact with it as you want. But then on Instagram, we've created this whole other system where at the start of the uprisings, you'd be like, hey, there's action going on at this location. We need cases of water, we need PPE, we need all medical supplies. And then people would just divert it there. Or if people were like, oh, I'm about to be evicted or whatever, it would be like, okay, here's this post, this ask, we're trying to keep our neighbors housed. And so over the course of the past 2 years, we've raised over $200,000 and redistributed it and kept people housed, kept them fed. Because the things that people are needing first and foremost are secure housing, which didn't exist in the city prior to the pandemic, and especially doesn't exist now. I think as of last May, the percentage increase of the cost of rent in Greensboro was number 7 increase in the nation from the start of the pandemic to that point. Yeah, no, it's true. And of the top 10, it was 7 or 8 of them are in the South. So that's also there's a larger trend when it comes to housing insecurity that's happening right here, and it's also happening very explicitly here in Glenwood. Yeah, so all of those pieces. But then also having been in Bonner and been a project coordinator of Project Community and understanding the networks of communities that live here, from that we were also cleared and able to make sure that the Bhutanese workers who were working in the factories and were able to get funding that wouldn't have otherwise been able to access funding. Because part of the importance and beauty of mutual aid is that it's building a culture of mutual aid, it's building a culture of care, and also one that highlights the ways that we have what we all need together right here, we already have it. And that actually also grows a lot from the teachings that I got from James in particular, that we're all teachers and learners. So we have everything. We have everything that we need as a community. And also we don't need to depend on the government structures to do it, because also so many people were writing into us and being like, I applied for the emergency housing funding and I haven't heard, and I have my second notice. And so some of it was urgent fundraising to fill the gaps of the local governments that are failing us. But so other things that I think are really beautiful about mutual aid is that this is both an ancient and a futuristic technology. It's one that we see, it's the thrivance and life ways of indigenous people, of Black people here in the United States. We have mutual aid societies that go back to the 1700s that were specifically, again, it was Black folk who were recently freed, who were then not getting resources, surprise, and so they were able to pool their resources together to support each other. And this is something, because Black communities, Indigenous communities, working class white communities, this like has deep roots. And continues to grow. And also, so the Freedom Fridges, which was mentioned, which is one of the projects of Greensboro Mutual Aid, it's a fridge in public space. I know, it's a revolutionary idea. And the very first fridge that we have created was actually housed in Warnersville, very specifically for the reasons that James was beginning to allude to, and that Warnersville was the first intentionally planned Black community in Greensboro because of the Quakers, because of that Quaker connection. It was also, again, the like, y'all go over there, but like, be free. And so that was also part of why that fridge is there. And so I also want to encourage you all to visit that fridge, to commit to like either seeking supplies from that fridge or supporting the fridge either financially or like weekly with like foods that you have in your home that you're like, oh, I'd like to share this with other people. And part of the reason that we called it the Freedom Fridge, it's inspired by the work of the Black Panther Party, who are also really big in terms of mutual aid. Like the reason we have free food lunch programs is because of the Black Panther Party, but then also it's inspired by the legacy of the Freedom Farms in Mississippi. So another cooperative model, and that we know that like food and food justice is like a key part of building community, of community resilience and survival, and like beyond survival, also like thrival. So support your local mutual aid groups. You're probably practicing mutual aid already. Like if you're the auntie who keeps a plate out for people, like that's you. If you're already giving to your local abortion fund, like that's you. If you're like keeping the lights on or like reporting when you see like checkpoints, like that's you. Like you're practicing mutual aid, and it's not just limited to a singular group or body of people. Like we all have the responsibility because we're all already doing it. So thank you.